What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to the SI Sooners podcast. See, what you guys got is you got a Big 12 champion for the 6th year in a row. How does that sound? I mean, seriously, 6 in a row? Who does that? Clemson, but you know who else is counting, right? Parker, I thought for a minute in that post-game press conference that Lincoln Riley was going to get a little misty on us, kind of, a little emotional when he was talking about everything that this team has gone through and all the adversity and all the obstacles. And I'm not making fun because, really, and I mean this 100%. He was kind of speaking for all of us. I don't want to put undue pressure on Lincoln Riley to speak for the media, but guys, not just his team, not just even college football, all of us, you and me, think about it, man. When we took over SI Sooners in March, right about when the pandemic hit, right? Nice. About 6-8 months ago, we didn't even know we were going to have a season at all. We were wondering if we were going to have a job. Same with the fans, same with everybody everywhere. And seriously, it's late December. It's unbelievable. So many people at OU in college football, blah, blah, blah. Did a great job, did an amazing job. Parker, making this college football season happen, it was a miracle that we're here.
It really is, John, and it just goes to show you, sports galvanizes. And after all that the last 9 months or so has brought and has thrown at us, it is truly a blessing to be sitting here on Selection Sunday knowing that we will have a college football playoff field, we will have a national champion, and hey, we're going to have FCS football come the spring as well. We're going to get twice the football that we initially planned on. I guess not twice the football, but you know what I mean. Rather than having a zillion games every Saturday this fall, we had quite a few every Saturday this fall, and we'll have quite a few every Saturday in the spring. And so for all the bad that this pandemic has brought, I'm doing my best, and I know you're doing your best too, to see the good. And I think Lincoln Riley was very much on the same wavelength. And I agree with you. For a guy like Lincoln Riley, who cares so much about his players and his program, it wouldn't have surprised me at all if he got a little bit emotional. I think that moment will come if and when the Sooners are able to secure a Cotton Bowl victory over Florida, which, it's funny, John, we were just at the Cotton Bowl yesterday. 11 days later, it looks like we're going to be right back there again.
Who could have thought something like that up? I don't know. Did we mention yesterday in our wrap-up that we were going to be back in 11 days at the Cotton Bowl? I think we did. Anyway, I'm John Hoover. I'm in Tulsa. Parker Thune's over there in Norman. This is Parker's final podcast, you guys, with the SI Sooners podcast. So thank you so much for listening to the SI Sooners podcast with or without Parker. Thanks so much for watching on my YouTube channel. You know I appreciate that. Here's the thing. I'm going to be back on Wednesday podcasting and the rest of the year, and however long they're going to let me do this. And you know what? We'll have some more stupidity, some more silliness, some more bad jokes. We'll have some more surprises for you for sure in the very near future. We are a Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network, so check it out, allsooners.com. Subscribe to this podcast so you get your notifications when a new one drops, or subscribe to my podcast on my YouTube channel, John Hoover Media. Okay, Big 12 title game, right? 27-21, Sooners win. OU led 17-0. They led 24-7. But Parker, man, I'm sorry, I was not taking the cheese this time. There was no point in that game at all, ever, that I thought Oklahoma's lead was safe, that they were going to blow Iowa State out. I mean, at one point we were talking about, well, if Oklahoma beats Iowa State like 64-10, then they're in the playoff picture. When it was 24-7, 17-0, I'm thinking, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. I'm probably not as smart as a mouse when it comes to taking cheese, but I did figure it out eventually. This team is not cut out just yet. They're still young. They're still full of sophomores and redshirt freshmen and stuff like that. They're still not capable of taking a good team and blowing them out for 4 quarters. They can do it with mediocre teams. They can do it with bad teams. I'm not so sure they can do it yet with good teams. I think next year they will. But anyway, Parker, let's break it down. I want to give out a couple of report cards real quick. Defensive line, A+. Easy. Spencer Rattler, you know what? A+. Marvin Mims, A+. How much better can you be as a freshman than 100 yards receiving in the championship game? Ramondre Stevenson, A, I thought was pretty good. Offensive line, B-, kind of barely avoided a C. Linebackers were good, maybe a B. Defensive backs were probably a B+. Gave up some catches, but also had 3 interceptions, especially Trey Norwood, who gets an A+. He set the curve for his guys. He started for Buki Radley-Hiles. You know what? They're going to pick on your shortest guy, so you replace him with one of your 6-footers, one of your tall guys. And he out-jumped Charlie Kohler in the end zone for a meaningful, hugely important interception. So you know who else gets an A? A+, Alex Grinch. Man, for making that move, that was huge. Let me think. Gabe Burkich, B+. I'll go with that. Made a long one, but missed an easy one. Reese Munshaw, A+. How about that? And Chandler Morris gets my final A+ of the day. Parker, how'd I do?
You gave out a lot of A+, John. You're normally not that generous in terms of your grading. You must
it's
be getting a
Christmas.
little soft in your old age. But no, I agree. There were, on an individual level, some very strong individual performances across the board. You mentioned Chandler Morris, who turned his one snap into the first touchdown of the game, right? Right as we all expected, John. The Sooners' third-string quarterback was the first one to find the end zone in the Big 12 championship. Trey Norwood, you said it, he started for Buki Radley-Hiles. Is Buki Radley-Hiles going to get his job back anytime soon? I don't know, because Trey Norwood leads this team with 4 interceptions, and after everything that he has been through and the journey that he has had as a Sooner to get to this point, playing cornerback, playing safety, moving to nickel, and excelling ever since he got back on the field this season, Trey Norwood has been phenomenal, and he was never going to be a lockdown corner on the outside. We found that out really early on. Kind of figured, okay, he might be a fit at safety, but he seems to really have found his niche at nickelback. And I also want to shout out DJ Graham, who quite obviously has earned the coaching staff's trust and continues to get snaps in big situations. Ramondre Stevenson, I think, was a lot better than his stat line indicated. He didn't get a whole lot of help from the offensive line or Lincoln Riley in terms of play calling. I wasn't as impressed with Spencer Rattler. I think he left a lot out there. He made a lot of dangerous throws that his receivers bailed him out on. But you gotta, it all comes back to Marvin Mims on the offensive side of the football for the Sooners. Marvin Mims proved once again that he is the most dangerous threat in the passing game from Oklahoma, as well as the most reliable. You saw the touchdown, John, and I mentioned it to you right after it happened. That play, the ball wasn't supposed to go to Marvin Mims on that play. That was the leak route that we've seen Lincoln Riley run with Mims and with Drake Stoops to great success over the course of the season. Lincoln Riley had Braden Willis leaking out, and that play was supposed to go, the ball was supposed to go to Braden Willis. But Marvin Mims just beat everybody over the top and ended up wide open down the field, and Spencer Rattler hit him for a touchdown. On a play where he wasn't supposed to get the ball, Marvin Mims ended up with the touchdown that gave the Sooners a near insurmountable lead and staked them to that early first half advantage. And Iowa State never could dig out of that hole. They had a shot at the end. But it just goes to show you, John, the Sooners can get contributions from all around. And obviously it didn't culminate in a chance at a national championship this season. They end up on the outside looking in terms of the college football playoff. But with as many guys chipped in with those meaningful contributions this season for Oklahoma, this is going to be a dangerous team come 2021, especially with this freshman class that they're adding.
Up next on the SI Sooners podcast, the transfer portal giveth and the transfer portal taketh away. Trade Pros Heat and Air in Oklahoma City. Whether you just need service or a mini split for your home office, studio, or man cave, or if you're finally ready to upgrade to a more efficient train system for your entire home, get a free estimate from Trade Pros for all your heating and air needs. Trade Pros earned a Best of 2020 award from Home Advisor and has nothing but 5-star reviews on Google. Go to TradeProsOKC.com or call 405-675-0176 or just book your appointment on Facebook. Trade Pros, that's one word, Trade Pros Heat and Air. Real quick, Parker, I'm going to play a game here, and you can take me seriously if you want. You don't have to. I thought Lincoln Riley obviously got too conservative in the Big 12 championship game, right? 17-0 lead. Offense slowed to a grinding halt in the third quarter. 3 points in the whole second half. 1 for 11 on third down. That's too conservative. That's what social media told us, right? Wait, I thought social media wanted him to get more conservative. There was a split faction of Sooner fans last night during the game. Half of him wanted to stop being so conservative, and half of him wanted to run the football more with Ramondre Stevenson. That's why Iowa State got back in it, right? Because they didn't run the football enough. So which is it, Parker? Was he too conservative or was he not?
Well, come the second half, I think he was definitely too conservative, John. And it wasn't the balance that concerned me. It wasn't as if he was running the ball on all 3 downs and then punting it back to Iowa State. Spencer Rattler threw the ball 34 times. It was the lack of creativity in the play design. And I think that's what you saw in the first half. The Sooners were able to jump on Iowa State in terms of scoring really early on due to the fact that Lincoln Riley dialed up some creative plays. Some of them, you could see the creativity very obviously. Some of them, it was a little bit more subtle. But come the second half, it just seemed like, okay, we're going to run an inside zone to Ramondre Stevenson, and we're going to run curl routes. What kind of recipe is that, John? What are you trying to do? What is Lincoln Riley trying to do with that against a really good Iowa State football team that was not going to let you bury them, right? And this is not the kind of team like Kansas or Baylor or Oklahoma State even. That's not that caliber of a football team that's simply going to lay down and die and let you dominate them once you jump out to that big lead. Iowa State proved that the first time around in Ames when they overcame a double-digit deficit to beat the Sooners 37-30. And the Sooners came dangerously close, John, to squandering another double-digit lead to the Cyclones. And you have to chalk it up, more than anything, to the drastic shift in the aggressiveness of the play calling from Lincoln Riley in the first half and the second half. Because it wasn't the defense's fault, right? The defense played phenomenal. To be honest, John, I'll say exactly what I said after the Baylor game. Last year, or 2018, or even 2017, 27 points is not enough to win the University of Oklahoma a football game. The fact that the defense was able to do what they did on Saturday against Brock Purdy and the Iowa State offense and to limit Breece Hall to 3.4 yards per carry is remarkable. And you had guys doing it on offense, too. Rattler had a fine day. Marvin Mims had a huge day. Ramondre Stevenson averaged nearly 6 yards a carry. So what went wrong? And you have to chalk it up, John. You have to chalk it up to that conservativeness that Lincoln Riley seemed to display in the offensive play calling in the second half. That's what bogged the Sooners down. It caused the offense to stagnate. We did not see that same fervor as we did in the first half when the Sooners jumped out to a 24-7 halftime lead.
I screwed up. I forgot to do social media coming out of the break from our friends at Trade Pros. You can follow SI Sooners on Twitter at @all_Sooners. Parker is at Parker Thune, Thune. I'm at John E. Hoover. Website, allsooners.com. Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. Content is free. No memberships, no subscriptions, no credit cards. Click and enjoy. You know the routine by now. You can find the video version of this podcast over on my YouTube channel, John Hoover Media. And remember, I need your help. If you're watching on the original channel, this channel is going away. Pretty soon, all my stuff is going to be over at this channel up here. And if you're watching on the first channel, the second channel, and I'm doing this, just roll with me, okay? Appreciate it. So jump over there real quick and subscribe. So, yeah, the transfer portal. We teased this coming out. Did something completely expected today. It took backup quarterback Tanner Mordecai. I know you guys, you and I, Parker, have talked about it in the past. We may have even thrown it out on the pod. He's from Waco, Midway High School. Just so happens the Baylor Bears are in the market for a new quarterback in 2021. Charlie Brewer also hit the transfer portal, so they have a job opening, immediate assistance required. We kind of saw Tanner, I think, to me anyway, hitting the road at his earliest opportunity. Lincoln Riley talked about him a little bit today on the video call with Dan Mullen, the bowl game press conference call, which, by the way, was pretty awkward. I don't know if you caught the beginning of it. It's basically 5 minutes of video of two head coaches just sitting there staring at their phones, working their phones, I should say. If you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. We've got it at allsooners.com. Enjoy the awkwardness. Anyway, Mordecai, he's probably good enough to compete for the starting job at Baylor, I think. I don't think there's any question. I never thought he was good enough to compete for the starting job at Oklahoma, Parker. Not with Kyler Murray, not with Jalen Hurts, and not with Spencer Rattler on this roster.
No, it wasn't in the cards for Mordecai at Oklahoma, but you look at a program like Baylor where they have had success in the past with guys like Robert Griffin III and Bryce Petty and Charlie Brewer. It's when you develop a quarterback for a few years, get him to become an established, experienced veteran in a system that he's familiar with, and unleash him. And I think Baylor could very well do that with Tanner Mordecai. Charlie Brewer, obviously, it's funny, John, we talked about this literally last week when Charlie Brewer hit the transfer portal. I'm pretty sure we said that, hey, it's a very real possibility that Tanner Mordecai also enters the transfer portal and ends up at Baylor. And to be fair, we'd had plenty of conversations to this effect on this podcast going back months because it seemed a foregone conclusion that at season's end, Mordecai was going to look elsewhere, especially with how strong Chandler Morris came on, especially how apparent it was that with Spencer Rattler at the helm this year and Caleb Williams signing with the class of 2021, there was never really going to be an opportunity for Tanner Mordecai to start at the University of Oklahoma. But make no mistake, the University of Oklahoma is one of maybe 10 programs across the nation where Tanner Mordecai simply wouldn't have a shot to start at the quarterback position. He's good enough that he can go just about anywhere and be a day one starter next year, his redshirt junior season. And he's got 2 years of eligibility, John, 2 years left that he can play with. And so when you look at a guy like Tanner Mordecai and what he can bring in terms of the experience under a quarterback guru like Lincoln Riley, granted he hasn't seen the field a whole lot, but he's been in that room learning from Riley alongside some of the best quarterbacks in the nation. 2 guys that are playing NFL football right now and a third that will be playing NFL football a year or 2 down the road. Just with all that he's been able to absorb in his 3 years in Norman, even if he hasn't seen the field a whole heck of a lot, if you're a Power 5 head football coach in the market for a transfer quarterback, you got to be drooling over Tanner Mordecai just based on the experience that he has had at the University of Oklahoma and the prestigious lineage of quarterbacks that have come out of Norman to have great success at the next level. Tanner Mordecai, if you're the type of guy where you're looking to unlock that potential in a guy, Tanner Mordecai has already had a tremendous start under Lincoln Riley, and you got to be excited at what you might be able to get as a Power 5 head football coach, just knowing that Mordecai had the opportunity to be in that room with those guys for 3 seasons.
Now, speaking of Kyler and Jalen, holy Moses, what a shootout those 2 guys had today out in the desert. Kyler threw for over 400 yards. Jalen threw for over 300 yards. Spoiler alert, Jalen. I'm kidding. I'm team no spoilers in case you DVR'd the game. Jalen was throwing the ball into the end zone at the end of the game. You're going to want to see it. Trust me. Stick around to the end. Parker, there's a strong faction last year before, that Jalen Hurts cannot play in the NFL. That faction has become, I think, Jalen Hurts is perfect for the NFL, which is 2 completely different things. I'm going to tell you what I'm getting at here. Mobile quarterbacks before this current generation of guys consisted of Michael Vick, of course, Steve Young, Randall Cunningham was a good one. Take you way back, Fran Tarkenton, a little before your time, Steve McNair, John Elway, Donovan McNabb. I looked it up. I looked up the top rushing quarterbacks in NFL history. Those are some of the names. That's pretty much it. There's a few throwers on there. Elway, Cunningham, Young, Tarkenton, I guess. Here's why Jalen is perfect for the NFL now. Because the new rules in the NFL are you cannot touch a quarterback. Don't touch him. Don't breathe on him. Don't look at him sideways. You have to, when you look at him, you have to make eye contact directly ahead or it's a personal foul, right? They're actually teaching running quarterbacks. Here's the other side of that equation. They're actually teaching young, mobile, run-around quarterbacks at a very young age how to throw the football. How to throw the polished passers is what I'm talking about. Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson comes to mind, obviously. Kyler, obviously. You see guys now like Daniel Jones running around, and here comes Trevor Lawrence in the next draft, presumably. He can run around. I think he had 90 yards rushing in the ACC title game yesterday. Kyler, for instance, is one of the most prepared, one of the most polished quarterbacks that there's been. Throwing the football, I'm talking about. And his dad is a quarterback's coach, a quarterback's guru, I guess. So if you have a real runner who's a polished passer and then you tell all the defensive guys that they're not allowed to hit him, guess what? He's going to be really, really good. And I think that's where Jalen is in his career. You see him running through defenses and he's like stiff-arming guys and cutting around guys. You don't see that out of quarterbacks. If this was 1990, trust me, I watched the NFL in 1990, I'm not sure all these guys would be having this kind of success because the knock was always this. Young man, you can't run around like that in the NFL now. They'll punish you. Those guys, they'll break you. Steve McNair, man, he was so tough. Elway was like John Wayne, Steve Young. They did it because they were like a piece of iron, right? Not everyone's cut like that, Parker. So what do you think long term here? 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, 12 years? You think Jalen is more boom or bust? Is his clock going to strike midnight, basically, like all the Hurts haters predicted, or is he kind of cut out for this new NFL?
I'm trying not to jump to conclusions here, John, because we've seen, 2 games as a starter from Jalen Hurts at the NFL level. And granted, he's been pretty impressive, but it's often the case, right? It seems like it's the case every year that there's one rookie quarterback that jumps onto the scene, has a tremendous first couple games, and then falls off the face of the earth. And conversely, there seems to be a rookie quarterback every year that has a hot start and proves himself to such a degree that he continues to earn starting nods, and he becomes an established NFL starter and becomes one of the higher paid players across the league. You know, you think about guys that have raced out to phenomenal starts in the past. Robert Griffin III, a guy we just talked about last segment, comes to mind. He had an awesome rookie season, got hurt, was never the same. Colin Kaepernick had an awesome first season with the San Francisco 49ers, was never really the same after that because defensive coordinators figured him out. But then you take a look at guys that shot onto the scene very early in the game. Right now, 2 guys that come to mind in that vein are Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, guys that had some mobility and have tremendously strong arms and were able to lead their teams to great success in the early stages of their career, were able to claim a stranglehold on that starting job, and are right now among 2 of the best passers in the game, two of the best quarterbacks in the game, 2 guys that you can build a franchise around. And I don't know yet where Jalen Hurts is going to fall, on which side of the divide he's going to fall there, because the thing about Hurts is the arm strength, the arm talent, the velocity at which the ball comes out of his hand, it's not the same as guys like Mahomes and Allen. Jalen Hurts is never going to be a guy that wins you a football game by throwing for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. And he's never going to be a guy that throws a 60-yard bomb over the top to get you a long touchdown. It's just not what he's built to do. And he's effective. He's got his own style. More often than not, it works for him. But I'm going to pump the brakes on the Jalen Hurts hype because I think what we need to see from him is we need to see his style of play become a staple in the NFL. It needs to become what he's known for. He needs to demonstrate that it works against NFL defenses for more than just that brief spurt of time when it's, he brings a new skill set to the table and defensive coordinators haven't quite figured out how to contend with him. And defense in the NFL catches up, John. It catches up to everybody. Right now, Patrick Mahomes is the one guy that it hasn't really caught up to, but that's because he's just such a ridiculous talent and he's got such ridiculous weapons in the passing game that he's almost immune to that. But at some point in time, everybody regresses to the mean. And the mean is different for different guys, right? For some guys, the mean is 3,500 yards and 20 touchdowns through the air. For other guys, the mean is 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns through the air. It all depends on what style of quarterback play is most conducive to a team's success and to an offense's success. And I think Jalen Hurts could be the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback of the future for that reason. I think he fits the system really well in a way that Carson Wentz doesn't. And I think that's the reason why Carson Wentz perceives that, okay, maybe it's time to get out of Philadelphia because Jalen Hurts is probably the guy here. Now, what I want to see from Jalen Hurts is I want to see him lead the Eagles to a playoff berth, whether that's this year, next year, a couple years down the road. Demonstrate to me and to the rest of the world that the way you play quarterback at the NFL level is going to produce greater success than simply individual achievements and accolades, that you can win football games, that you can put your team in position to play in January and potentially play for a conference championship or a Super Bowl via your play at the quarterback position. And so for me, it's less about what Jalen Hurts is doing in the here and now and more about how he develops under Doug Peterson, who is a former quarterback. He's a quarterback guy. If there's one guy that you want a young quarterback learning under, it's a guy like Doug Peterson who's been there before. And so I'm not drawing any conclusions on Jalen Hurts just yet. I'm excited to see what the rest of the season brings. The Eagles are somehow still in contention for a playoff berth in the weak NFC East. So who knows? Maybe Hurts catches fire over these last few weeks and takes the Eagles to a playoff berth, maybe wins a game, and there you go. Jalen Hurts is the toast of the NFL. But I want to see 2021 roll around. I want to see Hurts hang on to his starting job. I want to see what he can bring to the table for a full season before I assert that he's the Eagles' quarterback of the future, or conversely, that he's going to flame
Good
out.
coaches don't try to fit round pegs into square holes. They adapt their system to what the quarterback does, and I think a good example of this is Lamar Jackson, who also is not gifted with an unbelievably strong arm. Well, John Harbaugh has done a good job moving the system around to fit what he does, putting pieces around him to emphasize and accentuate what he does. So I think you're onto something there, and I think if Doug Peterson's smart, he's going to do a lot of the same thing. Although regressing to the mean, what you're seeing from Lamar Jackson may be happening. MVP last year, definitely not the MVP this year. Up next on the SI Sooners podcast, remember a couple weeks ago I asked you guys, where's Alex Grinch going? Well, we may have our answer.
Hey there, loyal listeners. Parker Thune here with SI Sooners. Are you a business owner looking to get your product out there to the masses? Let's say you run a hotel in Norman, or a car dealership in Oklahoma City, or a restaurant in Edmond. Or maybe you're just a small online business who creates and sells OU merchandise, and you want Sooner Nation to come sample your wares. Consider advertising in this space right here on the SI Sooners podcast. SI Sooners reaches thousands of readers, viewers, and listeners literally every day, and the SI Sooners podcast is the ideal place to find your next customer. To advertise, send an email to allsoonersi@gmail.com or send us a direct message on Twitter at @all_Sooners.
Final segment of the SI Sooners podcast. You know what? We've gone 25, 26, 27 minutes. We forgot to say something important, Parker. I forgot to say something important. OU's playing Florida in the Cotton Bowl. I think we said Cotton Bowl. I think we mentioned Dan Mullen. I don't know if we said OU's playing Florida. The Gators, 8-2 regular season, looked like they were going to get the brakes beat off them last night in the SEC title game. They rallied back. They got a little grit. Kyle Trask leads the nation in passing. I don't know. I like this Florida team. But yeah, they're the Sooners, Gators. They've played once before, and you all know when it was. It was 2008, at the end of the 2008 season. Timmy Tebow versus Sam Bradford didn't go your way. We'll talk more about that in some more later future podcasts. Right now, Parker, WildcatAuthority.com is a website that covers the University of Arizona sports. And they reported yesterday, Saturday, presumably after the game, after the Sooners took down Iowa State, that Alex Grinch was, quote, likely to get an interview in the next 48 hours. So, here we are on Sunday night. Maybe it's already happened. Who knows? Parker, what do you think about Grinch to Arizona?
He's not going to Arizona, John, and I'll tell you why.
I agree.
It's not because Arizona is a bad football program. It's not because Alex Grinch is unqualified for the job. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Alex Grinch is qualified for a job way better than the Arizona job. And look, Arizona has some history, right? They've been good. It hasn't been all that long since we saw them playing in New Year's Six Bowls. But consider what conference that program plays in. The Pac-12, which right now is the laughingstock of the Power Five. And it's a situation where Alex Grinch could go right now, interview for the Arizona job, I'm sure leave as the lead candidate just based on what he's done this season at Oklahoma in his second year at the helm of this defense. And he could take the Arizona job, make a big chunk of money, get a nice 5-year contract right off the bat, go down there, rebuild that program, have some success, and maybe put them in position to win a conference championship. But here's the thing. If Alex Grinch waits a year, or heck, even a couple more weeks, there are going to be some really, really good jobs at some really, really historic programs open across the country. You look at Michigan as a perfect example. Michigan is moving on from Jim Harbaugh. It's a matter of when, not if. And there are going to be plenty of opportunities like that later this year and next season when the coaching carousel rolls around yet again. And Make no mistake, right now, Alex Grinch is one of the hottest names on that coaching carousel. He's going to pretty much be in the catbird seat. He's going to have his pick of the litter. To a lesser degree, he's going to be in the situation that Urban Meyer was in with the University of Texas about a month ago. Alex Grinch is going to have his choice. He's going to be turning people down. I can guarantee you that. There are going to be multiple teams, both this offseason and next, that want to interview Alex Grinch for a head coaching position. I've said it before, I'll say it again, John. Alex Grinch is moving on from the University of Oklahoma. If you're counting on him being Oklahoma's defensive coordinator anywhere beyond 2021, that's unrealistic, because this guy is a future head coach. He's got that tenacity, he's got that natural leadership capability, and he's a guy that I think a lot of people, not just you and I, John, look at Alex Grinch and say, okay, that guy has what it takes to be a really successful head coach at the FBS level. And what he's doing right now at Oklahoma is great, and he's enjoying it, and he obviously loves the program, and his players love him. But there's going to come a time when there's a greater calling for Alex Grinch in the college football realm.
Yeah, he wouldn't be the first OU defensive coordinator to take the Arizona head coaching job, right? Mike Stoops took it, failed. Rich Rodriguez came in behind him as like the hottest from West Virginia, the hottest coach in America, the new run system, the new low option system that they had. Man, what an offense that was. He didn't do very good before he took the Michigan job. So, you know, if you think about it, listen, and then Kevin Sumlin, of course, another former Sooner coordinator. I think he was passing game coordinator under Kevin Wilson. He came from A&M, came from Houston, was at OU for a few years. He got fired this year, just last week. They go 0-5 this year. They got beat 70-7 by Arizona State. Sumlin gets fired. You know what? I looked it up. They've had a winning record once in the last 5 years. Their only 10-win season in the last 22 years was 10-4 in 2014. This is not a good program, not even by really Pac-12 standards. I think if Alex Grinch wants a head coaching job, I think he can be a defensive coordinator at Oklahoma for another year, keep that upward trajectory going, and get a lot better job in the immediate future than Arizona. Any more thoughts about the Big 12 title game? Anything we didn't get to that you wanted to hit on?
Well, I'll tell you what, John. I'll say this. Watching that game yesterday and realizing that Iowa State of all programs, and seeing it with my own eyes that the Cyclones were on the opposite sideline from Oklahoma, a team that's been in the Big 12 championship each of the last 4 years since its reinception. The fact that Iowa State, historically one of the worst programs in all of college football, at least at the Power 5 level, was playing for a conference championship. Man, I have so much respect for Matt Campbell. And like Alex Grinch, that's a guy that's not going to be at his current gig for very much longer. There's going to come a time at which there are some big programs with big vacancies that are going to come for Matt Campbell and come requesting his services from the Iowa State Cyclones. And here's the thing, John. I think there are coaches that are successful at the collegiate level, and there are coaches that are successful at the professional level, and there's some overlap there. And there's definitely a lot of coaches whose success is limited exclusively to the collegiate level, and there are some coaches whose success is limited exclusively to the professional level. You look at Nick Saban, for instance, who washed out as head coach of the Miami Dolphins after one season and promptly went to Alabama and built the biggest dynasty that college football has seen in decades. So there's something to be said for guys that can do both, that can coach at both levels successfully. It's very rare that you see a guy have success at both the collegiate and the professional level. But Alex Grinch and Matt Campbell are two guys that I think could do that. I think there's an NFL future for both of them. I don't know how far down the road that is. I would imagine that Campbell, for sure, is going to be in talks with some NFL teams once the NFL season comes to an end, and there are inevitably a few vacancies here and there. Campbell's going to be one of those guys that NFL teams are reaching out to. And I think down the line you're going to see the same with Grinch. I don't know if it comes this offseason or next, but much as we've seen with Lincoln Riley, there will be NFL teams that take a look at what Matt Campbell has done at Iowa State, and they will take a look at what Alex Grinch has done at Oklahoma and what he will do at whatever program comes next for him. And they'll say, I think we can make this guy the head of our organization, and I'm pretty sure he can lead us to some pretty phenomenal success. And to be honest, we saw it just last year with Matt Rule. Matt Rule made the jump from Baylor after 3 seasons to head coach of the Carolina Panthers. And the Panthers haven't been half bad. They're rebuilding, obviously. They've got some pieces to put together. But Matt Rule is a guy that I think if you watch him, I think if you get to know him and you witness the leadership qualities and the intangibles that he brings to the coaching profession, it makes sense, right? It makes sense that he's a guy, and you kind of look at him and naturally think, yeah, he could be an NFL head coach. It's not always the case for these guys. For instance, I mean, take a look at Mac Brown. Nobody's looking at Mac Brown and saying, yeah, that guy could be an NFL coach. He's going to be, and has been, and will be at the University of North Carolina, will be successful as a collegiate coach. But he's not the type of guy that you look at and say, he's got an NFL future as a coach. Alex Grinch and Matt Campbell, I think, are two of the guys at the collegiate level right now that I perceive as coaches that could take their game and could take their scheme and take their philosophies and their talents as coaches to the next level.
I think you keep hearing these Matt Campbell to Michigan. One of these days Notre Dame's going to come calling. I think that's short-sighted. I think he's a legit NFL coach. The question I would have is, he gets guys who are young and impressionable to play his style of football, his brand of, responsibility and accountability. He's slow and deliberate about the way he talks and expresses himself. I don't know if that's going to fly in the NFL. I just don't know. There's not a ton of those guys that have success. Parker, what about opt-outs for the bowl game? I think a few guys have a chance to do this. I think Ronnie Perkins is one of them. I think Perion Winfrey is one of them. I think Ramondre Stevenson might be one of them. Trey Brown might be the most likely. What they talk about, what those guys talk about, and we've heard Perkins say it actually, is that he needs to get more film. He needs to get more games on tape so the NFL will draft him high. Okay, that's pretty smart. But Trey Brown's got plenty of tape, and he's going to test. You see him run? He's going to test like a wild man when he works out at his combine or his pro day. Anybody else come out or jump out at you as guys who might miss this bowl game?
I don't think Perkins is going to miss it, John. I don't think Stevenson will. I don't think Winfrey will. And to be honest, I don't think Trey Brown will either. I look at one guy that I think might, and that's Creed Humphrey, just given the fact that, that man essentially has cemented his spot as a first-round NFL draft pick. And obviously we don't know how he'll perform at the combine, if he'll perform at the combine, if there even will be a combine. But Creed Humphrey is the one guy that I can see saying, okay, I'm going to skip the bowl game. It doesn't matter all that much for me long term, and I'll head off and prepare for the NFL draft, especially given the fact that he just graduated. But I just don't get the sense, John, I don't get the vibes from any of those guys that they are willing to walk away at this point in this season after Oklahoma has strung together 7 wins and built some real momentum heading into bowl season. Here's the other thing. They're playing an SEC opponent. And for all the smack that Oklahoma has heard about how the SEC is far and away the best conference in football and how defense actually gets played in the SEC, well, take a look at what happened yesterday, John. The final score of the SEC championship was 52-46. The final score of the Big 12 championship, on the other hand, was 27-21. So, right now, I think there's a very legitimate argument that Oklahoma has a better defense than a lot of those SEC programs, and I think Oklahoma is probably eager to go out and put that to the test against the top passing offense statistically in the nation, John. And so I think there's some added motivation there that maybe we're not quite cognizant of quite yet. But once we talk to these guys when Cotton Bowl media days roll around, I think we're going to start to get the sense that there is something to prove here. That it's not just about winning a bowl game. It's not just about seeing that confetti come down and holding the trophy in AT&T Stadium 10 days from today. It's about proving that you can hang with the big boys and about proving that the SEC is not as far above the rest of the college football field as maybe the public perception is. Oklahoma right now is playing defense just about as well as any program in the country. But it hasn't really changed the narrative. At least I don't feel like it has, John. And a bowl victory over Florida could help start to change that narrative.
Maybe. You might be right. I'm going to disagree with you on Creed. I think Creed is the guy that comes back. Creed came back last year. Creed came back this year. He's had a chance to opt out this year. He's not going anywhere. I think he is as bought in. He just tweeted, "I love this program. I love these guys." I think he is as bought in as any Sooner we've seen in the last, probably since Gerald McCoy. A future NFL star, and he's like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm staying in college." But those other guys, you start flashing that draft stock in front of them, especially with the film that some of them have put up this year. I have to wait and see. All right, you guys, listen, this is Parker's last show, so hit him up on social media and let him know how you feel about him, right? Can you do that for me? But not you, Gerald. Leave the poor kid alone, okay? Listen to the SI Sooners podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts, or on your Amazon-enabled device, just say, "Alexa, play the SI Sooners podcast." If you go to allsooners.com, you can click on the player, and you can listen on your phone, your tablet, your computer. You can always watch the video version wherever you want on my YouTube channel, John Hoover Media.
John, can I say something?
Yeah, Parker, of course.
Okay. Since it is my last episode, I just want to say it has been an absolute pleasure to do this podcast alongside John and to work alongside him over the last 9 months. You can follow all of my exploits over on OU Insider on 24/7 Sports. So if you like the stuff that I do, stay up to date. I'll be posting it all over my social media, and you can follow OU Insider at 247sports.com for all of that content. But here's what I will say. John is a tremendous man, tremendous journalist. There are few in this industry that work as hard as he does to give you the quality content that you as Sooner Nation and fans of the University of Oklahoma want and demand. And so please continue to read his stuff, support him, watch the video version of the podcast over on his YouTube channel, because I tell you what, folks, there are not that many people out there that will give you content that rivals that of John Hoover's. So even though it is my last episode, if there's one thing that I can offer before I sign off forever from the SI Sooners podcast, continue to read, watch, and listen to John Hoover. That is all.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. Appreciate it, Parker. For Parker Thune, I'm John Hoover. See you guys.